Hello everyone, welcome to the Festival of Marketing and this very special CMO Leadership for Marketeers session, all around the future of the industry, how clients and agencies are going to be able to work together collaboratively to grow again. And I know from many of you, you've had a very challenging time. It's been really tough as a marketeer. There's been moments of innovation, of inspiration, but there's been a lot of blood, sweat and tears as well. But imagine if you were the CEO of the world's largest communications group by revenue. That is Mark Reed. He's the chief exec of WPP, and I'm delighted that we've got you here today, Mark, to share a little bit of the challenges that you've been facing, but also the hope that you have for the future of the industry and WPP. Let's start at the kind of the biggest place, really, where, you know, it's been a really challenging time. You've been in the middle of a transformation before we even got to the pandemic. But what are your kind of hopes for the industry in 2021? Where do you think we're going to be able to go, and how, and what are the seeds of recovery that we can expect to look for?
Yeah, thanks, Suki, and thanks for having me, and thanks everyone for listening. Look, I mean, I think the first thing to acknowledge is what you said at the beginning, which is, this has been, a difficult time for everybody, and, close to 1 million people have died from COVID since the pandemic began. I think we sort of have to put that on the record as we start to think about sort of hopes and dreams, if you like, for 2021. I think we said in our interim statement that, Q2 was probably the toughest quarter, notwithstanding further lockdowns, and we're sort of 2 days into a sort of what I describe as a semi-lockdown now in the UK. And I don't think that will greatly impact things in a negative way from where we are now. I don't think it's going to be like it was in March, April, May. But I think there's lots of what we've seen in the last 6 months that does make me optimistic about the future. Our business, and I think and the same is true of our peers, have been much less impacted by the virus or the economic activity than people expected. I think that our client relationships, and we can talk about this, have got stronger. I think that the quality of creative work, while it's been a challenge, is as good as, and in some cases better than it was before. I think that actually clients are going to have to figure out what state consumers are in as we come out of this. Some people will be elated. Some people will have lost loved ones. Many people, sadly, will have lost their job. There's a tremendous amount of disruption that will have taken place. The high street, I think we realise, will not look the same. The volumes of people commuting into cities like London and around the world will probably take years to pick up. We talked about what would happen in the travel industry. So it's going to be a time of a lot of dislocation, and all of that means, I think, that the work that agencies can do to understand consumers, to understand where they are emotionally, to work out how to communicate with them in the right way is going to be really important. I think we've seen tremendous growth, certainly at WPP, on the sort of marketing, technology, e-commerce sides of our business, and all of that, I think, will persist as well.
And you've positioned yourself as this creative transformation company. What does that really mean?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sort of trip off the tongue. When I go through immigration in JFK, which is a long time ago, I always say I work in advertising. But look, and I think we know what we mean by that. But I think what we wanted to say was, I think WPP is a creative company. That's what our secret sauce is. And creativity in every respect: innovation, technology, media, production. But we're a business based on ideas, and ideas ultimately lead to growth. I think we use the word transformation in the sense that we want to help take our clients on that journey from how they used to market in the past to how they need to market in the future. So we help them transform their marketing. We want to be a partner to modern marketers. But I think we need to be a company and not a group. We need to work together to solve clients' problems, and we need to work together to be efficient and effective. So that's really what we're trying to say to clients.
I love that expression, you want to be a company, not a group. Look, we've seen for years, it's really hard to be a company, isn't it? To get different parts of the group to work together collaboratively. Yeah. Has the last sort of 9 months or so, has that helped it at all? Have you enabled that? Has that kind of moved that on a bit?
Well, I think that we've done a lot at WPP. You know, we have an executive committee for the first time. So the leaders of our agencies sit around a table and we talk about how we're going to run the business together and the decisions that we make. I think a lot of it, you know, comes from culture, the fact that people do like each other and they want to work together. And I think, you know, COVID has brought people together in a different way. So, you know, a lot more collaboration across WPP over the last 6 months. It's sort of accelerated, I think, the plans that we were already making. We launched something we call WPP TV that features, you know, people and agencies from across the company and brings people together for an hour a day, 4 days a week, is another example of collaboration. So I think that, you know, if you look at successful companies today, look at what Satya Nadella did at Microsoft. You know, you remember the old chart of the castle, and all the archers were firing in the castle, not out of the castle. It was an image of Microsoft. And sometimes I think that was also the image of WPP. And so I want to change that. It's going to take time to change, but I think we've made significant progress. And I think COVID has accelerated where we are on that journey. And I think that successful and confident people can collaborate. And actually, it's really motivating to people. We just looked at some of our people surveys, and collaboration and sharing and job opportunities and ability to learn from each other. That's what people want today. So I'm confident that we will build that culture.
That's interesting, isn't it? And is that partly your leadership style? I mean, you know, look, we all knew Martin. It was a very big personality and character, and there was sometimes not a lot of room for the other voices. You do seem, and you've always been in the businesses that you've run, you're a very collaborative leader. You've certainly enabled other people to have a voice at the top table. Is that your management style, or is that a kind of leadership style that you think is needed now, or is it both?
I think it's both. I mean, I've tried to, you know, I like nothing more than if other people succeed. I mean, frankly, Yossi Vada used to say the secret of success is to take the credit for other people's achievements. And if our people succeed, I'll get plenty of credit for what they do. I'm not really concerned about that, if you know what I mean. But I just think that it's, you know, leadership's been tested in the last 6 months. And I think that the people, you know, companies that have come out of it the best have been companies with people that listen and that have empathy and try and help their people get through this. And so that's certainly, you know, what I want to do at WPP.
Mm. Going back to the kind of position you've got and some of the challenge that we see in the future, this you know, the change in channel and the focus on channel versus creativity, this kind of friction between technology, how does that fit for you? Where do you see that going in the future?
Well, look, I think that ideas are critical. I mean, channels are just channels. If I use this example, do you remember that ice bucket channel, the ice bucket challenge, you know, on Facebook, right? That is an idea. It's a great idea, you know, an idea that got millions of people to pour cold water over their head, right? Has to be a good idea. And someone came up with it and they ran with it. So I think that we have to be in the idea business. We can't be in the channel business. Now, different channels require different types of ideas. You know, we did some work for P&G on TikTok early this year. We did Distant Stars to teach people in Ohio how to sort of dance. Got 16 billion views, right, on TikTok. You don't get that without a good idea. And I think that there's a danger in this sort of modern world. We disappear down the efficiency hole. You know, yes, it's important to optimize your digital media programmatically, and maybe you can get a 15 to 20% improvement in performance. But a great idea will multiply the impact of your marketing by 15 or 20 times. And I think that's really the business we want to be in. And I think WPP and companies like us are full of people who have those sorts of ideas. And I think that's ultimately why clients come to us as well.
Yeah, and of course, that is the bit that's going to help, you know, for us to recover, and it is what the clients wanted. During this last 9 months, I've spent some time interviewing a number of your agency leads, both on the creative and on the management side, and they've talked quite a lot about the work that they've been able to do and the kind of closeness of the relationship that we talked a little bit about earlier. Are there any particular kind of clients that you feel have been a really brilliant partner with you during this lockdown period, and you think are going to be able to help as we go into this kind of growth phase again?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, and I've heard that, and I was talking to some of our sort of team leaders, people, account directors in agencies running teams, and I think they felt the same thing in their relationships with their clients. And I think people at that level have really actually stepped up to lead client relationships, help clients get through this, as well as managing their teams in quite difficult situations. And people describe pace of work to some extent as being relentless. Alan Jobe had a quote, I don't know whether I'm, working from home or sleeping in the office. It's not easy, but I think we've all been through that together. And it's ironic that while we're sort of physically distanced, we've been, I think, brought together in no other way. I mean, I was looking at my diary in sort of the 3 months of the lockdown. I spoke to 50% more clients, but the average meeting was half as long, and I didn't need to get on an aeroplane. So actually, in many ways, people were there's more access to people were more available. I think we found that senior clients are much more engaged earlier in the process. I think that's been fantastic. I think that work is getting done in a much more agile fashion. And I sort of get a bit irritated by this work from home, work from the office debate. The real difference is, I think, that we just learned to work in new ways over the last 6 months, much faster, much more agile, much more collaborative. And I think that's what we mustn't forget, whether we come back and work in the office or whether we continue, working from home. And it looks now like by the time we all get back into the office, we'll have forgotten what we do when we get there. But so I think that the speed, and clients had that view before, they wanted us to work faster, they wanted us to do more. So I think that speed is really critical and something that we're really keen to retain.
Yeah. And what can clients do to really help agencies?
Look, I think, you would know this. I mean, a great client agency partnership is like any other relationship. It's based on trust and transparency and honesty and, fairness are amongst all elements. The clients that are people, if I were a client, I'd say, how do I get the best people in the agency to work on my business? Now, David Ogilvy would have said, pay them the most amount of money. He, in his book, actually, he says to clients, like, you should be the client that's our most profitable client because I'll put my best people on your business. That's one view, and much as I'd love it to be the case, I don't think it necessarily works anymore today. But I do think that there's some truth in it, that clients who treat their agencies well, that respect their ideas, that give people time, but also push people. We have clients that push us, and that's fine as well. So I think it's like any other relationship, an element of give and take is also critical. And we can all be sticklers for the contract, but we've helped so many clients the last 6 months, replan media. We saved clients hundreds of millions of dollars replanning media, none of which is in our contract, And so going above and beyond, I think, requires just a degree of, trust in that relationship.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point because, we have seen it both ways, and I would that. But I think that agencies have given to clients a lot. It's been a very challenging time for everyone, and you've had to make some cutbacks yourselves because of that, I guess, and because of COVID. Do you think, my concern is that we go back to moments of growth and clients don't go back to paying properly? I mean, I think we had a challenge even before lockdown on this whole way of financial remuneration. And in a way, I worry that it's now being forgotten about even more. And that we need to kind of go back to clients again and to say, look, there's a different way maybe of doing this, but we do need agencies paid fairly. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to give the kind of service that you want to do. Yeah,
I mean, perhaps. Look, I think that we have to be as efficient as we can. What's going to be interesting is, with the death of distance that I think we've seen, where is location and geography going to play into this? We have great agencies in South Africa. Why wouldn't we do work in South Africa? Lots of our businesses have learned to network, and if you're in Manhattan, Buenos Aires is today as close as Brooklyn if you're in an agency. So I think that there's going to be pressure on all of us to be more efficient and use resources perhaps in sort of cheaper areas, if you like, that we are going to have to think through.
Yeah, and I think if you can use your people in a more dynamic way globally, actually that's going to be a real asset, isn't it? If you can get them motivated, if you can find that way of working, that's going to be really helpful.
Yeah, we have to turn, at WPP, we have to turn what I call size into scale, right? And there's many ways we can do that. It can be helping clients grow and expand around the world. It can be helping our people with opportunities to work in other parts of the company, and to go from media to creative to data to production to public relations, in terms of how we train people, and in terms of how we use sort of resources around the world to do work most efficiently. So there's many, many ways I think that we can really turn sort of the size of the company into something of benefit to people. So why I like using this term of scale.
Yeah. And do you feel as a kind of global leader a sense of social responsibility at a level beyond your business? Like we see a number of the other brands doing that. And if so, what are you doing about that?
Yeah, I think that, clearly gone are the days when chief executives could sort of single-mindedly focus on sort of the profit motive, if you like, Milton Friedman or Adam Smith. I think we all recognize that our obligations go beyond that, for good reasons. We'll do the best work for our clients when our teams represent the societies in which we live and work. That's clearly the case, and clearly we've got further to go, on gender to some extent, but particularly on race. And that's something that I'm very focused on. We set out a new purpose for WPP, which is to use the power of creativity to build a better future for our people, our clients, and our communities. And to some extent, that's guided us over the last 6 months in the actions that we've taken, balancing the returns to shareholders with what we pay people, trying to protect as many jobs as we could during the last 6 months. We've done a tremendous amount of work with the World Health Organization, really helping them communicate both globally and in sub-Saharan Africa, and work with a lot of media partners in terms of getting space and bringing clients in. We brought Colgate in on a clean hands at distributing soap around the world with the World Health Organization. So I think that everyone recognizes that the obligation goes beyond the share price today.
Yeah, and that piece about people, obviously you talked about diversity, about well-being of people.
Yeah.
That there's been some press around the kind of the age profile that we've got across the industry,
Yeah.
but also you've got. So how do you balance that? What is is your focus just on one area, or are you trying to make it something for everyone?
Well, look, I think if I had a sort of mea culpa, I think, when I started, I focused a lot on gender. And actually, the Black Lives Matter movement was a bit of a wake-up call, I think, for all business leaders, that actually it's not just gender. Actually, in many ways, race is a bigger issue. And then I think then you realize actually that there's issues around, disability and age, and notwithstanding social media, clearly there are challenges of age in our industry, and it's not an easy industry. I'll put on the record, in the easy industry as people get older, and we do need people with experience in our business as well as others. So look, I'm pretty clear on that, and so we set up an inclusion council at WPP that brings together people that represent all sorts of points of view and parts of the world. That's not the answer in itself. I mean, a council is just a council, but it's sort of one part of what we're doing to really make progress. But we have to systematically look at how we run the company if we're really going to make meaningful change, and track what we're doing, from who we promote to who we hire to where we hire people from. And so there's a big exercise that we've undertaken to really put the sort of HR systems in place that give us visibility into what goes on in the company, and actually allows us to go beyond just looking at sort of representation data to actually what happens as we run the business.
Yeah. And then where's WPP going to be in the next 5 years? You know, what is it going to look and feel like?
Well, look, our aspiration is, you know, a creative organisation, you know, at the forefront of this industry. I think driven by, you know, our mission is creativity powered by technology, and I think that marketing is both of those things. I think every company today needs to be a technology company, and WPP is no different. But I do think we also have to have that sense of creativity and optimism. I hope we'll be, and expect we'll be, a much more diverse organization, and that will be good for us and good for our people and good for our clients. So look, I think there's a lot, as you said at the start, a lot we've learned over the last 6 months, and lots of reasons to be, you know, optimistic for the future, but no doubt sort of in the short term, you know, challenges ahead.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Mark. Thank you for spending the time
Thanks
with
so
me.
much.
Fantastic provocation for our session. You know, I think your point around creativity, technology, and the importance of people, not forgetting shareholders, is absolutely at the core of a massive organisation like WPP, but also that piece around how do you make it feel like a company, make it feel that it's right for everyone and right for the clients. I think is a clear challenge and well articulated. And thank you very much for your time.
Thanks so much, Suki. Thanks very much to everyone for listening.